You're rated 1200 at chess. What opening should you be playing? So let's have a look. We're on Lichess in the database and we're looking at all games from bullet up to classical at your rating of 1200. So let's have a look. On average, white wins 50% of the games and black wins 46% of the games at the 1200 level. But which openings give you the best chance of winning within here? And first off, this is going to be a big surprise. As white, you're going to be playing b4, the Polish. And why is that? Well, let's just go through the main responses that a black plays. So the moves at the top here are what you're going to face the most often. So e5 is played the most. My recommendation is bishop b2, putting pressure on this pawn. And you'll see pretty quickly how black plays and how wrong they can go. Knight c6, already a mistake. 2 moves in, you're +1, and you're winning 60% of these games. So this is why I'm recommending the Polish at 1200 level. After 2 moves, the most common moves faced by black, you're winning 60% of the games and the engine scores this as +1. Why? Well, we're attacking the pawn with our bishop and the only defender is the knight, so we deflect the knight by playing b5. Engine says the best move is bringing it back to e7, but what you see in practice in 68% of games is knight going up to d4, and then you play this multi-purpose move e3. That attacks the knight and also defends the pawn. Now, what move do you see most common here from black? Well, actually, in 59% of the games, they take the pawn on b5, leaving you just to take it back with your bishop. So we're move 5 here, a +3 position, and you're winning 65% of these games. I'm not even going to go through the next set of moves. I mean, this is clear cut, and this is a kind of a bit of a cheat code at 1200 of you to pick up some more wins. So you're welcome on this one. And then if we look, what do you do if you've got the black pieces? So let's flip the board. With the black pieces, well, most of the time you're going to face either e4 or d4. So against e4, what should you be playing? Well, actually against both e4 and d4, my recommendation is b6, and after a couple of moves you'll see why. So let's go through with what white does most of the time. They put their knight out to knight f3 because they've seen a nice course that says you should play e4 and knight f3. You're going to respond with bishop b7, and this bishop is super powerful, and you'll see it's often not handled very well by white. They'll bring both of their knights out in a principled way, knight c3, and we play e6, partly to start to put a pawn in the centre, but also to bring out our other bishop. Our bishops really get to work in this opening. d4 played by white, a kind of really principled setup here, but now we hit them with bishop b4. And the reason for bishop b4, it creates this pin against the king, but also you'll notice that our bishop is attacking the e4 pawn, and the only piece that's defending it is the knight. And now that this knight is pinned, it basically doesn't exist anymore. So if they don't play the right move, we're free to capture this pawn on e4. Most common is bishop d2 to break the pin, but now you see what happens here. The engine has started to rule in our favour after a couple of moves. We're minus 0.5. We can get rid of this knight. They take bait most of the time with the bishop, leaving this e4 pawn undefended. So you gobble up a central e4 pawn after move 6. Let's just go through the next most common moves. Bishop d3. Now, most common here, people retreat back to b7, which is a kind of alright move, but the engine and my preference here is to play knight f6, and you'll also see in the database this scores the best, 54%. And we'll just click through one more set of moves. Bishop takes on e4, you're taking back with your knight. So overall, you're winning 55% of these games. You're at move 8, and you've got a -1 position. A really strong way to play with black, playing b6 and bishop b7. So that's what you play against e4. What about if they play d4? Well, you play b6. Really cuts down on the theory that you need to learn. And if they play e4, you're playing into a direct transposition that you're just going straight into what we've just looked at. But most of the time they play c4 because, again, people that play d4 have read a course that say if you play d4, you should play c4. We start off again with our bishop to b7 on this really super diagonal, threatening the pawn down on g2. Knight c3 is played, and I like the most played move here, e6. Again, exactly what we played with the white pieces. e4 is the most played now by white, and we can kind of go back to what we looked at against e4. We're playing our bishop out to b4, pressuring on this knight, and if they don't do anything, we're going to gobble up the e4 pawn. They play slightly better most of the time here. We're playing bishop d3, which guards against it, but now you play this really interesting move that scores super well in the database. So if you look at this, on average, it's pretty even from this point on if you picked any one of these moves at random, but looking at it, f5 scores super heavily and is favoured most by the engine as well. So f5, what's the purpose of this? Well, if you're trying to look at the moves here, what would you play intuitively as white? Most played move here, e takes f5, watch the engine evaluation, minus 2.6. Why? Our monster bishop on b7 comes alive and wins us a rook. We'll say, thank you very much, we're taking on g2, and we're going to pick up this rook over here. It's a minus 2.3 position, we're winning 59% of the games, and playing b6, bishop b7 is going to win you a lot of games at 1200 with the black pieces. Combine that with b4 that you're playing with white, you're going to skyrocket through the levels. You're welcome.